Leprechaun Gold by Kathy Lemons. Once upon a time, not so far away, not so long ago, I woke up and said, I'll be on my way. I'll be leaving this very day. Wish I could stay. Might be back someday. So sad to say. I'm on my way. Away today. Wish I could take you with me. But out in the distance, out in the cold, at the end of the rainbow, that's where you find the leprechaun gold. It was lonely, and it got mighty cold, but I warmed myself thinking about all that gold. I heard the leprechaun was a jolly old elf. He couldn't resist a good story and pixie brew despite himself. After days of travel, I came upon the rainbow's end. I got terribly lost, though, and couldn't tell you exactly where I had been. But at the end of the rainbow, what do you know? There sat an old oak tree amidst a vast grove, as far as the eye could see. He opened his eyes and started looking at me. I was told here the gold would be. Where's the leprechaun? I asked the tree. The tree slowly replied, It's been a long time since anyone has spoken to me. After all, I am a tree. The secret is simple, even I can see, way up high, 'cause I am a tree. I cannot tell you which way to go. It is fairy lore, only the pixies know. To find a leprechaun in a single day, I will teach you the only known way. You must find the pixies to send you. Yes, pixie brew is all that will do. Pixies can be found when no one's around. They fly around without making a sound. Pixies prefer to live way below ground in a well-furnished earthen and stone fairy mound. Pixies can be seen when day turns to night as you sit around your campfire light. You must time it all just right when the sun has set and slipped out of sight. You must sing the pixie songs with which they love to sing along. They will be so grateful they will grant your request just as long as you remember to treat them like guests. I thanked the tree. It all seemed so silly to me, but I did as I was told, and what do you know? And out of the twilight, 3 pixies arose. They bowed quite low and asked, How do you do? Then they quietly produced the magic pixie brew. The 3 pixies said there used to be 4. One of them was lost on the wrong side of the door. It all started out as some kind of a joke, but you know how it is with fairy folk. They left the 4th so 4 could be 3. They wanted to see how 3 could be. When they tired of 3 and wanted to be more, they went back to get poor 4, but alas, couldn't remember behind which door. The sadness over the lost pixie made the others sing sad songs, with which you had to sing along, and drink pixie brew, with which they would freely give to you. We sang and we danced, we drank toast to romance. I took my last chance. As they started to go, I thanked them politely and bowed quite low. Meekly I asked, Where is the leprechaun, do you know? Together they advised me. The seeker must sing the summoning sonnet. Upon his head must sit a pretty blue bonnet. You must take 4 hairs, blonde, white, black, and red, tucked in the bonnet, tied upon your head. You must do all spinning on one heel. I've done it many times. It's no big deal. They handed me a bonnet, 4 hairs, and some brew. They said the leprechaun will be expecting the brew from you. They quietly assured me pixie advice couldn't be bought for any price. I had no sooner performed the strange deed when the little leprechaun appeared before me. He was short and dressed in fine woolen green. I told him where I had been and what I had seen. I handed him the pixie brew, bowed, and said, How do you do? I pleaded, Oh, Mr. Leprechaun, where is your gold? There is more than enough, I've always been told. The leprechaun laughed and said, Answer me true, with all the gold, what would you do? Answer me quickly, answer me nice, answer me wisely, but don't ask me twice. I gathered my thoughts and everything I'd been told. I have kith and kin who tell me they're cold, don't have enough to eat, and a few who have gotten old. Surely these ills could be eased with some gold. The Leprechaun nodded. You may be correct, and you may be bold, but how will you carry out all of your gold? At first I carried it here, and I carried it there. I spent most of my time carrying it everywhere. I counted and polished and potted it all up, then loaded it into wheelbarrows, cars, and then finally big trucks. I told him maybe I could plant it right here. Come back later with some friends and some gear. As the Leprechaun responded, he made it quite clear. He looked at me intently. He drew me really near. I myself have planted a little here and a little there, but I confess I really can't remember where. You must be so careful you are never spied by others who would gladly dig up your prize. Sneaky folks following to see what you'll do can make a real fine mess out of you. I peered into his great blue eyes. It all seemed true and not a lie. He drew even closer and continued to reply. I have one last question, and you must decide, because we are just about clear out of time. The funny thing with gold is, there is just never enough. So tell me, how much gold do you need? How about a truck? I quickly responded that one truck would do. He grinned and retorted, Are you sure you don't need two? The taxman will want his fair share from you. I meekly said, Okay, two. The Leprechaun began to giggle. He pulled his green handkerchief from out of the pocket of his vest. I have one last secret, I will confess. That gold was making a heck of a mess. I'm glad to have considerably less. It affected the way I spoke and how I dressed. Let's have a party. I'll have friends by the dozen. I can even invite my 25 cousins. With room to spare and no gold to spy, I can invite people over any old time. The Leprechaun started skipping all over the place. He was beaming and smiling. He asked me to stay. He began by saying, This is great. Maybe I'll see you Friday, 8:30. I'll be waiting by the gate. You must take care and not be late. The pixies will be there, sporting their brew. The fairies will sing and play as a tune. It will be fabulous. It will be gay. I have an underground bunker where we can all stay. I really wanted to accept his kind invitation, even give him my advance reservation. But Granny had always been really clear. Her wise words were ringing in my ear. Never hang out at fairy parties, my dear. 'Cause if they take a liking to you, they say there is nothing they won't do. Some even say they'll make a meal out of you. The fairies play magical flutes and sing sweet fairy tunes. They deck out in crystals and decorate their hair with fragrant flower blooms. They are hopeless romantics, always trying to get you in the mood. They want to make brides and grooms out of you. They will even feed you their fine fairy food. It's just so rich, it isn't good for you. It makes you all silly and easily misled. They wear you out dancing until it's time for bed. I thanked the Leprechaun politely. I really had to be on my way, even though secretly I wish I could stay. You don't get invited to such an event every day. But when you go places not on a map, it can turn out to be some kind of a trap. The Leprechaun nodded and smiled with a twinkle in his eye. Let's have some soup and bread and then some blackberry pie. After we had eaten, he asked me, Are you ready to try your luck and test the fates and load up your trucks? The forest was quiet. You couldn't hear a sound. He leaned in and whispered atop his green fairy mound. In a whisper, the Leprechaun told me where he kept all his gold. I could hardly believe it. I did all I was told. I keep all my gold way deep underground. I use trolls for security. I don't mess around. There was a secret entrance in the back of his house. I was blindfolded and was able to hear the squeaking of a mouse. The leprechaun led me down the hall, around a nook. Behind a book there was a ball. Put in the hook, and down you fall. Take a look. After you reach the end, it's more than you can possibly spend. All around there were gold coins sitting in gold pots. I have to tell you, it was more than a lot. He had wheelbarrows full of pots made of gold. He bragged they were the best 18-karat gold to be sold. The leprechaun's family were all scurrying around. The trolls were all trolling without making a sound. The trolls helped with loading the 2 trucks of gold. The leprechaun was incredibly strong, but was looking rather old. Finally, the 2 trucks were loaded all the way to the top. We were all hungry and weary. We really had to stop. He tossed me an apple. He said he had grown a great crop. I asked the little elf if he could drive one of the trucks. He said he could if he didn't get it stuck in the muck. The leprechauns dined early. They put on quite a spread. We ate our dinner slowly. And this is what he said. Let's head out before the bandits get out on the streets. They like to stay out late, folks you don't want to meet. We climbed the stairs and down the hall. He took me to the guest room. The bed was warm but very small, and the ceiling really low. I got in bed quickly. The candlelight glowed. I was so exhausted, the deepest sleep I've ever known. We headed out early the very next day. The leprechaun assured me he knew the proper way. It doesn't really take very long if you know the right direction. When we arrived in my village, there was a great stir and an open show of affection. The leprechaun could tell they loved him, and so with every generation in equal succession, with all he formed an instant connection. The leprechaun said all of his how do you do's, and was especially fond of my cryptic cousin Q. We were all joking and laughing. We didn't have a clue. A crowd had been gathering. Then from out of the blue, some officials arrived on the scene. They had a cop in tow, and they looked kind of mean. The cop asked the leprechaun for some form of ID. He shrugged and said, in California, I don't need it on me. An official stepped up and announced, we would really like to know where you have acquired all this new shiny gold. We want to know where you have been and what you have seen. We were sent by Her Majesty the Queen. I told them my story. It seemed like a dream. It had been going so well, if you know what I mean. The head of the tax department informed me I had to pay the special leprechaun gift tax that went into effect today, which they had all just gotten together and unanimously passed, they said. They produced some accountants and they quickly tallied my bill. I paid them quietly, but I couldn't believe it was real. The whole town was present and made such a big deal. Took it as a license for the government to steal. The whole affair made me not a little mad and really quite ill. A little elf remarked, for such times I carry a special red pill. After dark we quietly hid all the rest in the cave in the hill to avoid another mess. The leprechaun whispered, it's all happened before. The gnomes had the orcs knock down their door. They beat them and laid them all out on the floor. They stole all their treasure and left them all poor. That's why gnomes hide what they treasure inside. They can't take it no more. The leprechaun told me he had a great time, was happy to have not spent a dime, but he had to be home by dinner time. I gave him a hug as he ready to go. He spun on his heel and disappeared in a glow. It took a while, but things settled down. It was a lot of excitement for this little town. It has brought in tourists from places all around. We tell them we don't know where the leprechaun can be found. It's been a long time now since I met that jolly elf. He said his name was Greensleeves, but to keep it to myself. I couldn't help but love him in spite of himself. He told me, Good health for our earth brings blessings untold. Family and friends are worth far more than mere gold, and good luck is better than a buck. Good night.